Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Academic Writing Series. I'm Dr. Pravina Rodrigues, co-editor-in-chief of Springer's Journal of Dharma Studies and professor at Starr King School for the Ministry in California. I've published several articles, written a book, and have been a writing coach for several years for grad students in the United States. In this series, we'll unpack the building blocks of academic writing, from structuring your argument to crafting clear abstracts and engaging with your sources critically. So whether you're a grad student submitting your first article or a researcher aiming for a top-tier journal, this space is for you. And before I forget, please subscribe and check out the full playlist, simply so that you get a pop-up when the next video is out. The entire playlist is not up yet, but it will be soon. Welcome back to the Academic Writing Series. And in today's video, we're going to answer a foundational question. What exactly is academic writing, and how is it different from other forms of writing that you may be familiar with, for example, like creative writing, journalism, or business communication? Let's start by placing academic writing in context. There are many writing genres, too large to mention. Each have their own conventions and audience. Creative writing tells stories, it builds characters, and it often explores emotion or imagination. Journalism, on the other hand, reports current events for a broad public audience. It's fast-paced, it's concise, there will be a mention of dates, places, so on and so forth. Business writing is transactional. There's memos, there's emails, proposals, and the presentation of some kind of quantitative or qualitative data. Academic writing is different. It's formal, it's structured, and it's designed to contribute to an ongoing scholarly conversation. So you probably already encountered academic writing in the form of research papers, thesis, dissertations, scholarly essays, conference papers, journal articles. All of these are united by a few key principles, and that is what I'd like to look at right now. So let's break those down. Academic writing has four major purposes: to inform, analyze, argue, and most importantly, to advance knowledge. So whether you're dissecting a text, presenting research findings, or proposing a new theory, your goal is always to add something meaningful to your field. So unlike casual writing, academic work is aimed at a specific audience, and that audience is researchers, scholars, professionals, and advanced students. This means that your writing must assume a certain level of familiarity with the topic. Now, this is something that can't be taught. And you would have to use terminology that's appropriate to that audience. Academic writing is formal and objective as you can be. It avoids slang, contractions, which means that you can't say isn't or didn't. You would say is not or did not. And it is not overly personal, so you would not use personal language. It often uses discipline-specific jargon, but only if it's necessary, which means that you're not trying to sound over-scholarly or to impress anyone. You would use it only when it's necessary and when it clarifies specific ideas. Most academic writing follows a clear structure. There's your title, your abstract, your introduction that presents your topic, and a thesis, basically a body of arguments which is developed and supported with concrete evidence. And then, of course, you have your conclusion that synthesizes your findings or your insights. Now, beneath all of this is a logical thesis-driven framework. So every paragraph should serve the central argument. And your central argument, what drives your central argument, is a research question. And we're going to talk about that next. A research question is a central query that guides your research project. It's the driving force. It sets the tone or the direction for your study. A good research question is clear, it's focused, and it's concise. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. For example, why is climate change bad? Now, this research question is too broad. Everyone knows that climate change is bad. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that. But something more focused is what we want to aim for. So a better research question would be, how does climate change affect agricultural productivity in a specific place? For example, it could be a village in Thailand or something like that. So you see, what you have done is you have mentioned climate change, you have mentioned its effect on agricultural productivity, and you are now going to research its effect in a village in Thailand. So a research question has to be very concise and focused, and that leads to a meaningful investigation. Your research question should be something novel, a question that has not been asked before. Because if it has been asked before, why do you even waste your time asking the same question? Unless, of course, you disagree with past scholarship. And the novelty of your question is something that drives the entire project. So your question is going to be the central force. It's going to be something that will attract the attention and will take the discipline forward. So now that I've introduced you to the genre of academic writing, its formal, structured, evidence-based nature, I'd now like to talk about a crucial element, an outward-facing element, which is your title and your abstract. Now let's talk about what a good title should do. It should summarize the main idea. So you want to capture the central focus or the argument that you are trying to make. You also want to attract attention. So your title should stand out. It should engage the reader. It should engage the scholar. And then it should set reader expectations. So how are you, or how did you conduct this research? So this means that sometimes you could mention the scope, you could mention the method, or the key question. So let's give you an example. And this is from one of my forthcoming publications, and it's co-edited with Sam Forsley. And here's the title: Desired Mother and Mother of Desire, a visual inquiry into the goddess Mahakali in North American pop culture. So it says Desired Mother and Mother of Desire. Now, for someone who's reading this title, they may not exactly understand what it means. And for that, and to understand what it means, they would have to read the abstract. However, the latter part of the title that appears after the colon further explains what that title means or what the research is about. It says a visual inquiry. So this is the method, or this is how the research is being conducted. It is a visual inquiry. Inquiry into what? Into the goddess. What is the goddess's name? It's Mahakali. So you know that it's not a goddess from Greek culture, but the goddess has a specific cultural, religious identity, a name. So she's from the Hindu pantheon. And it's a visual inquiry into the goddess Mahakali in North American pop culture. So North America obviously is big, but it is very specific. It researches the goddess Mahakali in North American pop culture. Now, what happens is the reader will now go and read the abstract in order to further understand what exactly the research is about. An abstract is a concise summary of your paper. It gives your readers a complete overview, a bird's eye view of your research. So it has objectives, it has your method in it, it has your key findings and your implications. So it says why you're doing the research, and it will point out to research gaps, problems that you might have noticed, and that's the reason why you're doing this, working on this current project. It has what the problem is. So it will narrow down the problem to a specific aspect and then talk about that problem. It has method, which is the how you are conducting this specific research. Is it a textual analysis? Is it a historical analysis? Is it a literary analysis? Are you using a specific theory from the 19th century or a specific theorist? That is the method. And then it has what? That is the results or the findings that you have come up with. And these are the various elements that are present in an abstract. In the beginning, you would have to come up with a working title and a working abstract. And as you write your paper, you may have to tweak the abstract, or when you're done writing the paper, you might have to go back and then work on the title and the abstract again. But an abstract is basically something that a reader or a reviewer looks at, and it has a concise, focused summary of everything that the paper is presenting. Again, it's the first impression that your readers or a scholar will have along with the title. So it has to be properly stitched up and properly presented, of course, with everything else that you will be writing in your chapter. So at this time, I'd like to present an example, which is from the same book chapter that I mentioned earlier. I mentioned the title earlier on, that is Desired Mother and Mother of Desire, a visual inquiry into the goddess Mahakali in North American pop culture. So here's the abstract, and I quote, "Today, new generations with new perspectives on the world, influenced by technological advancements and diverse cultural, religious, and social exchanges, are increasingly turning to Hindu goddesses for inspiration. From Mick Jagger to Heidi Klum to Cardi B, the goddess Mahakali is evoked in spaces such as Hollywood, social media platforms, magazine covers, video games, and op-eds." So what you'll see is that I have presented a little bit of a background, and then I talk about what this book chapter is going to do. This chapter is a visual inquiry into the production and reproduction of Kali images and themes in North American pop culture, generated for various purposes by individuals and groups. By employing a hermeneutic of generosity alongside a Shakta theological lens, I explore the deeper subtext to show how Kali is both mother of desire and desired mother. So what you will notice here is that we are being very specific in mentioning the method, which is, of course, a visual inquiry, but also we are employing a hermeneutic of generosity alongside a Shakta theological lens to look at the deeper subtext of how Kali is both mother of desire and desired mother. And then we present the argument or the implications or the findings of this research. As mother of desire, Kali acts as a mirror to reflect disordered projections of the self. As desired mother, she blesses purified desires and is the object of worship. In this way, Kali's symbol is both a site of projection that reflects a broad spectrum of human desires and identities, and a vehicle of articulation of cultural, personal, and ideological identities, from feminist activism to the commodification of spirituality. This reflects a complex interplay between the symbolic, the spiritual, and the digital, where the goddess is appropriated in ways that highlight the diverse and often contradictory social, cultural, political, and subjective contexts. So you will see all the elements that I mentioned earlier on when I was talking about how an abstract needs to have a complete summary of the paper is present in this abstract that I have shared with you. And I would suggest that you could pause the video for a little bit and just take a look at this and see if it has the what, the why, the how, and all the elements that I've mentioned earlier on in my presentation. Now that you're done with your title and your abstract, it's time to work on the introduction. The introduction is important because it sets the tone, the stage for the entire research. A strong introduction does a few key things all at once. First is it introduces the topic. It provides relevant background information that is not comprehensive to the entire discipline. It does not attempt to provide general information, but information that is specific to your research question. And it structures the paper. So it gives you the opportunity to capture interest while keeping a scholarly tone and a focus. Let's break down the introduction into essential parts. First is context. You want to start by grounding your reader in the topic. So this could be a historical presentation, a theoretical or a conceptual context, whatever the context for the paper or for your project is. Next, identify the problem or the gap in existing literature. Why is the current topic worth studying? What are scholars missing in current conversations in academia or in the particular discipline? Then you want to ask your research question. Pose your research question or your thesis, your argument. It should challenge presuppositions. It should challenge assumptions and introduce a new perspective. And this is the heart of your paper. You also want to define the scope of your study. Are you focusing on a specific case, a time period, or a subset of material? What is the scope of this topic that you intend to dig deep into? You want to talk about your method. Explain your method. What is your approach? It could be a particular theory. It could be a theorist. It could be a specific mode of analysis, a textual interpretation, qualitative or quantitative interviews. What is the mode? What is the method? Then you can embed literature review. And your literature review is going to be short, obviously, but this shows that you are familiar with the field. You highlight dominant paradigms, you have identified the gaps in the field, and then you show why the current research question is of importance. Remember, a great introduction does more than just summarize, it actually builds momentum. Okay, so we talked about titles, abstracts, and introductions. Now we come to one of the most critical elements of your paper, which is the claim, the backbone of your argument. So what is a claim? A claim is a statement or an assertion that expresses your viewpoint, your central argument, or the position you're defending in your paper. So it's not just a topic or an observation. A claim makes a point and it invites discussion. It's what you intend to prove or substantiate with evidence, with reasoning, and with analysis. To be effective in academic writing, a claim should be assertive. I argue that. I will show how. These are words that you can use in order to assert yourself. Don't hedge, don't wander. You have to be clear and precise. Avoid vague language. Be specific. A claim must be well defined. You must know exactly what you're arguing and what you're not arguing. A claim is debatable and is also provable. So a strong claim isn't just a fact. It's also open to challenges and requires evidence to persuade others. A strong claim doesn't just stand alone, it's part of a conversation. It's debatable. If no one could disagree with it, it's not really a claim. It's provable, which means that you must be able to back it up with evidence. It opens space for discussion. And you also want to include pros and cons. And pros and cons are important. Tensions, you want to include tensions that you might have noticed in scholarship. You also need to include implications. And all of these various aspects or these various standpoints show that you are well aware of the argument from various perspectives. Your claim needs support, and that support can come from various places depending on your field. It could be textual evidence, it could be historical context. You could be using primary sources, you could be using timelines, you could be using all kinds of empirical data, survey questions, quantitative studies, so on and so forth. The point is to not just assert, but to provide evidence for the claims that you're making. And that's a very important point. For every claim that we make in an academic paper, we want to provide the evidence for that claim. So you can't just make things up in an academic paper. In an academic paper, we need to prove everything that we say. A strong claim is clear, it is arguable, and it is supported by evidence. And it's the foundation of your academic argument. So if you have a working title, an abstract, and if you'd like to drop it in the comment section, feel free to do so, and I'll give you some feedback. So you've done all the heavy lifting, you've researched, argued, and supported your ideas with evidence. Now it's time for the final step. That is the conclusion. And no, this is not just a summary, it's your last opportunity to leave an impression. So in the conclusion section of your academic paper, you want to close your argument and reinforce the value of your work. It's a place where you step back, where you reflect, you talk about your findings. What did you find? Why does it matter? And what comes next? So here are some basic elements of a strong conclusion. First, you would like to summarize key findings, the results or the arguments that you are making. You restate, and not in the same words, because in academic work, you do not repeat the same words over and over again, and not even a quote. So what you would do is you would highlight what your research has shown. You would then synthesize. So you're not repeating, you're just tying your findings, any loose ends that might be there. And you help the reader see the bigger picture. You highlight significance. Why does this matter? What are the theoretical, practical, ethical implications of your findings? Why is it even important? You suggest future directions, if any. And last but not the least, you leave a lasting impression by ending with a quote, maybe a memorable insight, an anecdote, or something like that, so that whatever it is that you have proposed in your research lingers with the reader and leaves a meaningful impact. So your conclusion is more than just a summary. It's your final word, and it should remind the reader why your research matters, point to what's next, and leave them thinking about your contribution long after they've finished reading. So I'd like to close by talking about the craft of academic writing. When I think of academic writing, I think of it as crafting something, stitching something together, piece by piece, pulling up raw materials, ideas, resources, questions, and then placing them together with care and structure in such a way that these materials are now shaped and the threads are seamless and beautifully layered. And the argument that you are proposing is now presented with precision. Each paragraph, each claim, each citation or reference that we use is carefully placed. It's almost like an embroidery, like a textile design. And it's supposed to be clear, be consistent, and prove a specific point to the reader, the reviewer, or the academic community. And no matter where you are on your academic writing journey, we always have room to grow and to learn more from one another. I wish you all the best on your academic writing journey. Namaste.